Brexit. Had enough of it yet? Yeah, I sure have. But I'm going to share with you a different perspective. At least I think it's different. And a suggestion, maybe, based on something I observed about 20 or so years ago. Brexit's a situation now where you've got what I'll loosely call the elite, the people in government at the top, even the senior civil servants, all running around talking furiously angry, bitterly angry at each other, squabbling. And the people at the bottom, the rest of us, have to get on with their lives and feed the kids and pay the bills, etc. And you're worried that the people at the top are going to sink the ship. And it reminds me of an experience I had about 20 years ago. I was a lowly aircraft design engineer working at Airbus in Bristol. And the company went through, but it wasn't Airbus at the time, sorry, it was actually British Aerospace Airbus. And then it went through at least 2, maybe more name changes in a very short space of time. And within a couple of years, it'd gone from being British Aerospace Airbus into just plain Airbus. And one guy came in at the top. I'll not mention his name because I find it hard to mention his name without attaching an impolite 4-letter word to it, but never mind. He proceeded to completely reorganize everything and everybody. And for the next 6 to 12 months, we watched the people at the top, the middle to senior managers, all running around with their heads cut off like frightened, angry squirrels, desperately squabbling. Of course, I realized what the problem for them was that they were all scared about their jobs. Everything was changing. They didn't know what they were going to be doing, what role they were going to be doing in 6 months or 2 months. They were trying to make sure they're trying to secure their position, reinforce their position, maybe see if they can move up or at least not fall down. That was one half of the story. And the other half of the story was down here, the rest of us, the people at the coal face, as we used to call it. Who had work to do. And it was really quite interesting because over this, I remember it as being about 6 to 12 months, but it probably was a little bit longer than that. As everybody at the top were running around desperately trying to secure their next position, avoid being sidelined or etc. They completely ignored those of us down at the grass level, on the floor level. And over that period of time, an incredible thing happened. And it was incredible for the simple reason that it wasn't incredible. Aircraft kept getting delivered. They kept going out the door to customers. Work kept getting done. We worked together. I had colleagues in Toulouse, in the south of France. I had colleagues in Hamburg and Bremen in Germany and Charleroi in Belgium. I would get emails from them. They were asking me questions. I'd fire back with answers, maybe a question of my own. I'd fly off to see them periodically. It was a little bit trickier because you couldn't find anybody to authorize the travel because they were all too busy skirling around trying to spending the time in meetings trying to figure out what was happening. The rest of us just got on with our jobs. Aircraft kept getting delivered. Incredible. After about 1 to 2 years of this, everything calmed down. The senior managers, the elite, got settled in their new positions, whether they'd climbed or fallen down, whichever, and everything kept going. Down at the grassroots, at the coalface, nothing really changed. The people at the top squabbled and squirreled around. The work just kept getting done, which sort of leaves you the question, left me with the question, I wonder how many of those people at the top are really necessary. And I've since learned enough that most of them weren't. You could argue about why they were there and why they kept getting paid. I don't know. But that's another question. But it left me realizing that there's 3 times in life when the people at the top are really, really terrified of change. One is if they are already at the top and are terrified of falling down, because if you're at the top of the mountain, there's only one way to go. And the second one is if they're old. The older you get, the more you realize your time is limited. If you look at that, most people who really, really oppose change, who tend to vote for the more conservative political parties, they tend to be the older folk, because time is limited. They just don't want change. They know they're going to lose everything and eventually anyway. They just want to put it off for as long as possible. So stop the change. If they were protesters, they'd go around with a placard and written on it, "Stop the change." And the third time when the elite get really, really worried is when they have this deep-rooted suspicion that they're not actually necessary. They don't have any real skill that they're bringing to the marketplace, bringing to the situation, and they're terrified of being found out. They're suffering from legitimate imposter syndrome, because they really are imposters, and they need to be tossed. But that's the perspective I want to offer, is that in Brexit and any other electoral political nightmares that might be looming. I'm sitting here in Canada at the moment. We've got an election looming in two months, and already there's all sorts of machinations threatening that. There's Brexit that is scheduled for October 31st, and a highly touted, suspected election coming there as well. And in a year's time, of course, south of the border here, we have Trump. In a year's time, he'll be either re-elected or unelected. But the perspective, I guess, is, or the suggestion I want to have is, if you're watching this, you're probably feeling rather powerless. My suggestion is, you're not. Actually, you have quite a bit of power in all this. And the greatest power you have is by simply continuing on, beavering along calmly. Keep doing your work. Keep pleasing your customers or your colleagues. Just keep going. Don't quit. Ignore the elite squabbling at the top, all the squirrels and the rabbits. Ignore them. Not worth it. By doing what you're doing calmly, continuously, you are doing great good. There's a terrific verse which I just looked up before starting this video. King Solomon, 3,000 or so years ago, wrote this in the book of Ecclesiastes. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. Now, the ruler's anger might not be raging against you, or maybe it is, but it's not because of anything you've done. The ruler here is any member of the elite, or the elite all put together. If they're angry, if they're frightened, worried, agitated, okay, you can achieve great good by simply calmly going about your life as you always have before. Eventually, it will die down. Right. Kirk out.